Hi there. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about feeding your starter. How you feed your starter has a lot to do with what you want to get out of it. So if you're going to be baking often, you want to feed your starter very regularly to keep it really healthy and robust, keep all the yeast really active. If you're going to be baking only rarely, there are ways to only feed your starter occasionally so that you're not going through a lot of flour or a lot of process of feeding it twice a day without really needing to. So I have this starter here that we started last week, and I kind of should have fed it this morning, and it's this afternoon now, and I skipped it. You can see there, it's very liquidy, it's very frothy on top. Kind of messed that up right now, but you can see it came up, and then it dropped again, and it's kind of sped. It smells pretty sour. It doesn't smell too bad. It smells a little sour. So I want to bake with this tomorrow, and I skipped feeding. Now what do? I could feed it now, and then feed it tomorrow morning and use that for the starter. And I will know that my bread's not gonna really pop the way I want it to, and it maybe tastes a little more sour than I expect it to. I can also feed it twice today and twice tomorrow morning, and by the time I put it in the bread, it's gonna be really, really revved up and ready to go. And you don't need to feed it a lot. Just a little bit is really all you need. So you can see we have like maybe a cup and a half, 2 cups of starter here. I'm gonna go the frequent feedings route because I'd like to have a really yeasty, fresh starter tomorrow. So I'm gonna feed it right now, which is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm also gonna feed it in about 4 hours, right when I go to bed. So it'll have a refresher between now and then. Then in the morning, I'm gonna feed it when I get up at 7 a.m. or so with a big seed and keep it really warm so that moves pretty fast. Hopefully it'll take about 2 hours to peak. So then I'll feed it again at 9, and that will be the levain that I'll put in the dough. So I can get in 4 feedings between now and then and get it really revved up. If I feed it every time it peaks, I can get a lot of strength out of the starter between now and then. So I'm going to show you how to do a high seed feeding that I want to be ready pretty soon so that I can feed it again tonight, overnight. So I'm gonna leave quite a bit left in here. If I were going to just feed it a tiny bit because I didn't want to feed it again for another 12 hours or even longer, I could get away with a pinch like that. That'll feed the starter for 12 hours or 24 hours. But since I want this to be ready in just a couple hours, I'm gonna use quite a lot of seed. I forgot to get water. Get some water real quick. Okay, back with some water. So I'm gonna put in a little bit of water here. Not much, a little bit more than the starter I left, but still quite a lot of starter there proportionally. And then get some flour in here. And again, this is pretty warm water because I'm trying to get it ready fast and keep the yeast happy. So pretty warm water in there. This is maybe even a little bit more than you need to do. I have a heavy hand. I tend to give things a little bit more than they need to. If you're short on flour, you can definitely go a little bit less than this, and that's just fine. But so get a little feeding in here. That was heavy on the flour. A little bit more water in there. There we go. So I'm gonna keep this warm and cozy, and I'm gonna hope that in 4 hours or so before I go to bed, I can give it another feeding. Now when I do that feeding, it's gonna sit for at least 8 hours. So I will give it a little bit less seed and keep it a little cooler because I don't want it to get super spent overnight this time. I'm trying to get it kind of revved up for tomorrow's baking. So the nice thing about this whole process is that it's pretty forgiving. The worst thing you can really do is overthink it. If you forget to feed your starter, you skip a couple days, all you have to do is give it a few feedings and it will really get back on track. The other kind of nice thing about that is that if you're not feeding it for a few days, you can store it And my favorite way to do that is to dry it out quite a bit. Here, actually, I'll give you guys a little demo on that. So say I were not going to be baking for 5 days, or say we're going to go on a road trip. I want to take my starter with me. I'm going to, out of clear bowls, so we're going to use this one right here. I'm going to feed a little fresh starter here. I'm going less water than that, because I'm going to try for a stiff starter here. So get a little warm water in there. Get a pinch of my spent starter in there. This is my compost for the day. And then I'm gonna get quite a lot more water here, or flour. Make this pretty stiff. This is good for transporting. It's a lot easier to transport a pretty stiff ball of dough than a liquid levain. And it also kind of slows it down a bit. So I would kind of get this like it's going to be a dough. So this is much, much, much stiffer than what we normally deal with. But all those yeast and bacteria are still stored in here. This other so you guys can see I'm doing a little better. Just kind of squeeze it all together there. Doesn't have to be perfect, just for levain storage. And then you can pop this in a container, any kind of Tupperware container, whatever. Pop the lid on it, and then you can take that with you. You can stick it in the fridge. That will hold it for a really long time. And then whenever you're ready to use it again, bring it out, let it warm up a bit. You're gonna wanna bring it out about 8 to 10 hours before you wanna use it, because you wanna let this start to ferment, and then you will break off a piece of this and use it to feed a liquid levain like that. Give it a couple refresher feedings, as close together as possible as it starts to rise. Even once it peaks, you want to feed it again, and that will really get it all revved up and ready to go. And then you're back in it. So I know that throwing away the discard starter can be kind of painful sometimes, especially when we're low on flour. Storing it is a great way to avoid feeding it more than you need to. If you're not baking every day, you can definitely kind of put it away like this. It also helps sometimes to kind of think of it as a pet, and half a cup of flour here and there as pet food, and you're just giving it what it needs to keep it happy and healthy. The kind of key about starter is that you get out of it what you put into it. So giving it more love and attention and frequent feedings and moving it to a warmer spot, all those things are gonna keep it happy. And the happier it is, the more it's going to perform for you. So that's my 2 cents on starter feeding. Hope that helps.